All right. We continue our conversation this morning with Renee, Gelin. You know the foot product they have on TV? Are you Gelin? Well, actually, they named it after her.
We are all gelling this morning, right, Renee?
With Gelin, baby. So, we're talking about adoption.
Yes,
hey,
sir.
A little clue about doing radio. When you hear space, fill it.
I'm getting that. I also don't want to wind up saying something silly. Renee, are you on the line still?
Nope.
Nope,
She
has
disappeared.
an issue.
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, welcome back.
Thank you. So we were talking about the mom in Tennessee story and how
Yes.
shocked you were that they did an unnecessary C-section.
Yes.
This is common practice. There's a lot of things that are done where mothers don't even know that they don't have to do them. They don't have to go through with that. They don't have to just go along with it because they made an adoption plan.
Now, hold on a second.
Oh.
I've, Barbara had cancer a couple of years ago. And she went through 9 visits to the hospital, 7 operations. Now, every time you get an operation, at least in the state of Florida, you got to sign a slew of papers. Are you telling me this person who had the C-section didn't sign, wasn't giving papers about what they're about to go through?
They were given papers about the surgery, but what they weren't understanding is that this surgery did not have to happen on this day. The surgery, she could have waited to go into labor to have the surgery. There was no problem pregnancy. There was no reason for her to have the surgery. There was no health issues with the mother. There were no health issues with the baby. This was a C-section
surgery was
scheduled
totally
out of
unnecessary,
convenience.
according to what you're saying.
It was out of convenience for the adoption transaction to happen.
That's horrendous.
And it was Thanksgiving weekend.
Well, hold on. Why did the young lady who was pregnant, why was she willing to get the C-section? What was she told? Why the urgency?
She was the C-section?
Mm-hmm.
Because she was so far down the path, her baby's father didn't want a parent, was listening to his mother saying, if you have this baby, just exactly what Jennifer had said. Oh, they can go to college and everything's going to be fine. It doesn't work that way. Once you have a baby, once you become a mother, you don't forget that. Your body, your brain chemistry has changed, your body has changed, and the nature takes over. Your body knows that you are supposed to have a baby. So
Yes.
she's down the path listening to logic and reason and not her body or her heart. She's in a panic mode. I'm going to do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
The baby's dad was telling her, you're not going to be a good mother. She had no support. The people around her were not supportive. And that's the problem. And that's why Saving Our Sisters was put in place and started, because it's exactly what happened to me. I didn't have, or I didn't feel that I had the ability to reach out and say, hey, I need help.
Specifically, though, how did they convince her that the C-section was necessary or that she needed to do that at all? I mean, how
just made the
was
plan.
that accomplished?
They just make the plan. They hooked her up with their doctor at their hospital, and he said, we'll just do the C-section here. They can come out on the weekend, take the baby, and away they go.
And she's so traumatized by the whole experience, she doesn't even think to say, wait, why am I having an unnecessary surgery?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes. She has no support.
Wow.
I can't even, and I'm talking to you guys, you haven't carried a baby. You don't have any idea what pregnancy hormones are. And they're crazy. They can just wreak havoc. There's a they call it a drug.
Okay, now hold on a second. Let's just stop here just for a second. If I go to buy a car today, have either of you purchased a new car in the past year? James, you have, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Renee, have you purchased a new car?
Not in the last year, but in the last 3, yes.
Okay. They have because of litigation, they have a slew of papers that nobody in their right mind reads in their entirety. The person who's in the financial office, which is where the dealers make a lot of money these days. They make more money off of the money than they do off of the sale of the car. Anyway, I mean, that's what Sears was doing. They were selling items for cost, but getting you in debt with your Sears card. That's why they pushed all this stuff, because the more you get people in debt, then they just pay off the interest every month, and they have a money stream that's created. Well, anyway, so when you buy a car, you have to sign all these papers. Now, you're telling me that they don't make a girl sign a slew of papers and stuff that she's supposed to read before. Do you understand what you're doing here? You're giving up your child, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Does she?
They do exactly what you just said.
What?
You're giving up your child here. This is this paper. Here's a little booklet on grief. Here's how this is going to go. Let's talk about how often you're going to see the baby, because open adoption is an option. And
but are you telling me that it's easier? It's harder to buy a car than it is a baby.
It's harder to purchase a car than it is to. It's harder to purchase a contract, use a contract to buy a car, because it takes more time. You've got everything explained to you, and then with giving up a baby, they do not go into details. They do not go into details about your rights. The laws for adoption are so extremely complicated and complex that it has taken me quite a few years to actually figure out, what the pitfalls are in each of the states, because every state has different adoption laws. Just like, every state has different laws when you're buying a home and things like that.
And as they should, because we don't want to be run by the federal government. So I agree with that.
But the problem is that then there's no way to oversee that. And you have to have that oversight in every single state. So, for example, in this situation, there was no advocate there for mother saying, by the way, this is an optional C-section. This is an elective. You do not have to have this C-section right now. You could wait until you go into labor and basically have your C-section if you need it, right? Because it may not even be needed.
Is there a tax on this when somebody buys a child? Is there a tax?
There's a tax credit for the people who are adopting.
No, I mean...
They get almost all the money that they pay out back in a tax credit.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying...
The adoption tax credit, look it up, yeah.
See, if there was tax involved in this, I'm paying a tax, not receiving a tax credit, then the government would have their hands all over this because there's money involved.
I don't believe there's taxes on this.
But I think...
So...
I was told early on by George Ferran in New York City when I was involved with Columbia Records. He said, don't you ever... ever, never, ever sign something until you've consulted with an attorney.
Well, and in this particular case, under the law, they were supposed to provide her one, and they never did.
Well, then they need to contest that.
They are.
That makes it null. That makes it null. Look, my dad was an attorney, so that makes it null and void right there.
But with adoption, it doesn't work that easy, Rhett. You have to first find an attorney who's going to represent a mother who usually doesn't have any money, because that's why she's doing the adoption in the first place. And attorneys don't work for free. So now, not only are you trying to find an attorney to represent you to get your baby back, you're trying to find an attorney who's going to blast the facade of this adoption.
Okay, now hold on a second. Now, we've got Reverend Bill in here. Reverend Bill, how are you this morning?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Rhett?
Okay. Other than our sound quality sucking, but there's a lot of buzzing going on. You adopted 3 children, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're saying you were mouthing over to me while she was speaking. That's not the truth.
No, it's not, for the simple reason that first off, you have to have a lawyer, okay? And if you don't have a lawyer, then you can have the state provide you a lawyer. And as far as lawyers
you're talking about contesting, though, correct?
No.
No, I'm talking about the adoption in the first place. When I adopted the children, I had 3 different lawyers that wanted to do it pro bono for the simple reason that they got to write it off at the end of the year. And you can turn around and you can go out there, you can contact a lawyer association or the bar, either one, and ask where you can get a pro bono. That's how I got the lawyer, was by going to the bar and asking them, where can I get somebody that would do this pro bono? And they did it pro bono. And the lawyers put their names out there to these organizations and to the bar to turn around and say, I will do it pro bono. So you can call and do it.
The adoption. They do it to support the adoption. They do not do it to help the mother.
But you said she didn't have a lawyer in the first place to do the adoption.
She didn't.
Okay.
She didn't. She didn't even know. She didn't even know her rights.
It doesn't sound like she asked
problem.
it doesn't sound like she asked too many questions.
She was 19 and in college.
I was
no,
20.
She didn't.
I was 23 years old and starting a business. But I had sense enough to go ahead and ask questions.
You can't blame the government or anything else, or those adoption agencies, for the ignorance of a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old. Actually, at 18, you're considered an adult in the United States of America, right? Mm-hmm. So that's not anybody's responsibility except that person.
What she was looking at. No. That's all emotion. Doesn't matter if she's under pressure. She was looking at the whole rather than looking at the donut. She was looking at where she wanted to go. But
there's consequence to that.
You can't blame the adoption agency or the people who adopted the baby for that, because it was her who was doing it.
Here's the thing. Yes, I can. And in this case, this mother filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. She has a case because it is the duty of the adoption entity to make sure that all the laws are followed.
Exactly.
It is their business. It is their business. It's not this mother's business. It's not my business. But I figured it out. And as soon as I did, her baby was returned in less than 48 hours.
Okay, now, so in other words, what should happen is the person who's in the business of making a profit, now profit's not evil, but if you're making a profit, it is your business and you have special knowledge, then they should not be, an adoption proceeding should not be allowed to take place. I don't give a damn unless that person signs a paper saying, I give up my right to have an attorney.
Amen. She didn't do that. Not only did she not do that, they also snuck other paperwork in there.
Hold on. No, we don't.
No,
hold on. Now you're saying that just like people judge people of motivation. Well, he did this because, she did this because of money. We don't know. We never can presume. We don't know they snuck it in there. It was in there. Did she read it? And if she didn't read it, then that's partially her fault.
Let me finish my thought. They put paperwork in her paperwork that she was signing.
Yeah.
That she was waiving her own state laws. Now, you tell me another business transaction where you can waive Florida state law. You live here. She waived. They do this all the time in adoption. Oh, you know what? We don't want to use Tennessee law because it doesn't benefit us. It'll delay the adoption from going further. So we're going to use California law over here. And, by the way, Mom, if you want to contest this, now you have to come to California. I'm helping another mom.
Like I said, then you're really the problem is with our legislators. You have to have a law passed that says unless 2 lawyers are present at an adoption, it cannot go through. Now, the government will give you one. What do you call it when you go to court and they give you a lawyer if you can't afford one?
Public defender.
Yeah, public defender. But you have got to be represented by both sides by an attorney, or the adoption is null and void, and that's the way it should be. And then it's the job. Then the attorney. Let me tell you something. I got friends that are attorneys, and it's tougher than ever because you go into an attorney's house now, and they got stacks of paper everywhere. Because if they misplace one piece of paper, they go to jail. And if they can't prove that they did it, I would not want to be an attorney for all the tea and shine at this point, nor would I want to be a doctor, because here are beautiful doctors with great minds want to heal people, and they're trying to push them into being bookkeepers and businessmen and having to hire 10 people per office just to take care of the damn government, and the government keeps adding on all these papers because somebody's sitting there going, well, I'm making $125,000 a year up here in Washington. Unless we create some reason why we're here, they're going to eliminate our office. Okay, let's create another paper on this or that, and it'll take us 2 years to write it and then a year to get it through legislature. Well, that'll keep our job secure for at least another 3 years, and then we can figure out another reason. And if you think this is funny or you think this isn't true, this is truth.
You know, I appreciate everything that you're doing in trying to help mothers, okay?
Yeah, me too.
But the biggest thing you can do to help those mothers is to go to after these adoption agencies and go to legislators in the different states and say, listen, this is what's going on.
The same thing with abortion. They should have to tell a child. They should have to hold on. Let me say this. They had the abortion because I tell you what, they have got to. They've got to be able to tell someone who's going to get an abortion. They never tell them that there's going to be a consequence to this. What is it? 9 out of 10 women are stabbing themselves with not physical but mental knives for the rest of their lives in regret and remorse of having given. There's the boomerang effect, right? How come there should be a law about that? Do you understand that there's a 90% chance you're going to regret this the rest of your life,
No,
for having this abortion? And by the way,
study at Baylor University just paid for, and it says exactly that. Pretty much every mother that was surveyed, mother of adoption loss that was surveyed, says they were not informed of the lifelong impact. They were not informed of the consequences. They did not understand the huge effect this would have on themselves.
Well, then we're not a sophisticated society, because this is what you guys need to do. You need to make sure that you got to go to the top. I don't know who you go to about this stuff.
Well, but first what we have to do is we have to rally the troops. And that's exactly why I'm talking to you. Because if I can't get you to understand that selling a human life when it's unnecessary and that mother just needs some temporary help, How am I going to ever go against the legislature and the rest of society?
So what you're going to have
adoption is wonderful.
Yeah, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to whittle this down. You're never going to. You're never going to get anywhere. Now, this is the second time we're going to have spent an hour and a half together. You got to whittle this down so you can be on an elevator, and I'm a congressman. And by the time we go from the 12th floor to the first floor, I understand the gist of what you're saying. You've put my heart over the fence, and therefore my body's going to follow. We got to take a break. We'll be back on the other side of noon. We're talking about adoption, ladies and gentlemen, and the horrific consequences of adoption in the United States of America. This is the Mayor of the Airwaves. It's not over yet.